What's up, peoples? How are you all? Um, awesome to be back live. I've been live stream here in a little bit. We'll give people a chance to file on in here. I try to mix up the times that I do these because everybody always yells at me because they can't watch for whatever reason. So, what's up, guys? I see Daniel Lobo. We got Dana Lou Who, Toby, and Andrew and Lauren. Welcome. Hopefully, you all can hear me. But yeah, so I've been trying to mix up the times that I do these. And so I figured we would try to do an earlier Sunday afternoon one because I did not want to interfere with the Dusty Wheel is going to be on a little bit later today, which is always fun. And I want everybody to be a part of that. So I did not want to interfere with that. How's it going, Stubble? What's up, John? Malkier Talks. And you're all filing in now. Hey, if you guys are popping into the live stream right now and you don't mind, hit the like button if you can. It helps YouTube promote this stuff. Just so you guys are aware of, like, I always tell people this, like, if you watch a bunch of YouTube videos and you have a lot of content creators that you follow, one of the best ways that you can support them without, without spending any money necessarily is to interact with their content. And so likes, even dislikes, actually, likes and dislikes, comments on the videos, all of those things, and then watch time are the best ways that you can support creators. So if they're, obviously that doesn't have to be me, but if there's other creators that you follow, one of the best ways that you can interact with them is just watch their videos. Watch time is really important for the YouTube algorithm. I've done as much for certain creators that I want to help give a bump is even if I'm going to be in the other room cooking or something, I'll turn on a playlist of theirs and just let it play. So just a little tidbit of advice when it comes to how you guys can support content creators. That's one way you can do that with the YouTube algorithm that doesn't cost you any money. But yeah, so if you, all of that to say, if you don't mind liking the video, that would be awesome. So guys, welcome. If you've never been a part, I know we've got some new folks I'm seeing here. If you've never been a part of the live stream, I'm kind of haphazard with these. Like, I like to kind of see where they go. I may pose a couple questions and then, let it go from there. But I like to kind of follow along with comments. I will let all of you know I am notoriously awful at responding to your live chat. So I try to hit to them, but once I start talking, they all fly by so fast for me. So, but anyways, so I wanted to maybe propose like a little bit of a topic of conversation here because it's been, other than some leaked photos, which I'm not going to repost just because I don't want Amazon to hate me. We have not had any real Wheel of Time TV show news here lately, right? And, we had been getting a little steady stream of them confirming things that we kind of already knew. But we haven't had anything big come out here recently. And so, I guess one question I would have for you all, what is the big announcement that you're the most excited to hear? Is that, so I could tell you what it is for me, and maybe this will help you guys talk through this a little bit. But I really want to see the first Forsaken. That, like, whether that's a Shamael, whether it's Agonor, whether it's anybody, the next casting that I'm the most looking forward to is that. Now, I know there are a ton of other castings. We've got Min, we've got Elaine, we've got Gawain. To all of you who are worried they're cutting them, it's been mostly confirmed through Rafe talking that they're not cutting any of those major characters. So just because we have not heard of them does not mean we're not getting them. They've obviously very selectively not released that. So for me, it's a Shamael. I really want to see who they're going to cast there. And maybe we already have that with Steve. But I'm curious who you guys think. And while you're answering that question, again, I'll reiterate this. If you guys all don't mind hitting the like button on the video, if you're watching right now, if you've joined us, that is super, super helpful for YouTube promoting this. And then number two, I will mention this just because I'll mention it once now and once again later. I have a new sponsor on the channel that first of all, I'm super pumped to have. But But second of all, it's a service that I've been using for a long time, and I'm not going to promote it necessarily, but I'm going to mention it here. There is a link down below for NordVPN. I don't know how many of you use a VPN or not. If you're on the internet any significant amount, I can't stress enough to you that the importance of using a VPN. It protects your privacy, it protects your safety, it protects your internet provider from tracking everything you do. If you ever use public Wi-Fi, if you're in an airport or anything like that, like it makes it so that you are completely safe. And if you want to click that link, you can actually see, if you're not familiar with what a VPN does, you can kind of see all of the different things that it does there. But it's privacy, and then I'll tell you the big one for a lot of you, especially if you're in other countries, being able to watch like American Netflix or to be able to watch European Netflix or some other service. You can do that with a VPN because basically you log in from one place and then you can watch it from another. So what happens if you click that link down below, you're going to get a real special deal, and it very much helps support the channel in doing that, and it's super cheap. So if you guys can check that out at some point, that would be awesome. So anyways, back to the question at hand, and that question was, who is the casting that you guys are most looking forward to? So let me kind of scroll back here and see who some of you have said. I know, Shantane, I see you saying the Camelin crew, and I think that's one that a lot of us are looking for. I mean, who's Galad? Who's Gawain? Who's Elida? Who's Morghese? Who's Elaine? Are we seeing all of them? Because I still think there's a question of whether or not they're going to cast them in the first season. I think we're fairly certain that the crew is going to end up in Camelin, just because we've got Basil Gill cast, and that's been confirmed. So I certainly see that, but I'm not entirely sure that we're going to end up seeing the inner court. So I don't know that we're going to see Rand in the throne room. And the only reason, like I think logically it makes sense to keep that in there because it sets up the story. Like, why cut that? But as I've talked about before, the reason that you might cut that would be, do I want to pay the actress that's going to play Elida or the actress that's going to play Elaine? Do I want to pay them one episode's worth of work for something that I'm going to have to lock them down for like 6 seasons, as main characters, right? So that's I think the holdup to that. Yeah. Anyways, it's interesting. So I see Stubbles talking about he wants to see concept art for Shadowspawn, and I'll tell you what, I can't wait for that. The first time we get to see the Shadowspawn, I think, will be a real tell on the level of quality that they put in. Like, here's what I'll say about the leaked pictures about the White Cloak uniforms. Again, I'm not going to repost that stuff. They were leaks. I typically will not repost anything that's a leak. But in general, I'll talk about it. Here's what I'll say about it. I think some people were a little taken aback at the way the uniforms looked, like maybe didn't look the way they pictured White Cloaks looking. But I will say this, those are damn good quality uniforms, right? Like, they're really, really good quality. So, yeah, I see Celtic saying, I see a couple of you saying, like, just concept art in general. And that's the kind of stuff I think we're going to see once the show is released. I think they'll release some of the concept art with behind-the-scenes stuff, maybe when they sell season DVDs, things like that. Why does everybody ignore Lamgwin? So yes, we wouldn't mind seeing Lamgwin as well, but I don't know that Lamgwin's a major future. But Dana wants to see Swan and Elaine. So yeah, I definitely want to see Swan. And especially if we have an actress that's, again, this is unconfirmed, so you can't bank on this yet. But we have a younger actress of I would say of color that has been cast to play Swan, which actually is in tune with being somebody from Tyr. But so I think there's going to be an interesting casting, and I know that's going to cause all of our racist trolls to come back out again once they cast somebody differently than they think. But I'm very excited for that casting, because Swan, I feel like, is a candidate. Swan is a character that I think, first of all, she is a main character for a part of the story. big main character for a part of the story. And then she kind of takes a back seat after a little bit. Excuse me. And I feel like she is actually a character that could be expanded upon. So I would like to see her have a bigger role in the story. Like, I think a lot of times people focus on with TV adaptations all the things they're going to cut. But the reality is what they're doing when they're cutting stuff is they're not necessarily just cutting them for time. Like, they can throw characters in and just say, that's them. But they cut characters so that they can combine them and we can focus on a fewer characters in more depth. And I would like to see Swan as one of those characters that we focus on in more depth. So I'm definitely excited for that one. I definitely want to see Elida too. I'm extremely excited for Elida. Because I feel like she's a very good villain in the story. Like, she has impact. Like, if we're set up to care about Swan, the deposing of Swan and Lyanna is a big storyline. So that would be interesting. And I definitely want to see her for that. I think she's a compelling villain. Like, she's also compellingly stupid at times. Like, she's very competent, but simultaneously very ignorant and only sees what she wants to see. Whether that has to do with Pot on Fane or not, it's still, I think, an interesting dynamic, and I'm really excited for that. I see people saying they really want to see Bail Doman. And, guys, we may have seen Bail Doman, just to say. I think, again, it's just me headcanoning things, but I think Steve might be Bail Doman. That would be my guess. So we'll see on that. But will be interesting to find out. Elida is the Joffrey of Wheel of Time. Yeah, but I think Elida is a little bit more well-meaning than Joffrey. So I understand that, like, they're both bad, but I think at the end of the day, I think Elida generally thinks that she's doing what's best. Now, obviously, she's very self-centered and narcissistic and things like that, but her general motivations are that she is the most capable and competent person to lead the White Tower. And there's a little bit of a complex there, but Joffrey was just flat out incest crazy. So I think there's a difference. Like, he's sadistic. I don't think Elida is sadistic. I think Elida is misguided. I think Elida is narcissistic. But at the same token, she's a capable Aes Sedai and was somebody that wielded power for a reason, unlike Joffrey, who was just born into it. So that might be my opinion. I'm sure somebody might have another one. I see somebody saying Lanfear. I would absolutely love to see Lanfear. I think I'm going to say this. I think the casting of Lanfear and I think the casting of Galad are going to be very hotly debated for a bunch of reasons, because attractiveness is very much in the eye of the beholder. And those two are described as being like the most attractive people ever, right? And so I have a feeling that no matter who they cast, they're just setting that up for somebody to be upset at it. That's just my thought. Like, I feel like there's she's not hot enough to be Lanfear, or he's not hot enough to be Galad. Like, I just know that that's coming. I'm sure you maybe agree. I guess I'm so well adjusted to YouTube comments at this point that I'm kind of aware that, Chansonnet, I don't think beholders are very attractive at all. I love multiple eyes. I love thousands of eyes. They look hot. Real quick, while we have a small break here, if you all don't mind liking the video, if you hit the like button, it helps YouTube promote this. Again, my little speech on the algorithm earlier, anytime you interact with a video on YouTube, YouTube promotes that content creator more, and they promote those videos more. So appreciate all of you doing that. My Jeffrey comment more is, and I will enjoy seeing her die. Okay, I see it. So you're saying that you end up loving to hate Elida as much as you love to hate Joffrey, and I can see that to a degree. But that's the sign to me, and I talked about this in my last video with Pot on Fane and having him essentially knock off more characters that we care about, because to me, impactful villains are interesting. Villains that don't have an impact on the story have very little interest to me. Like, I'll give you a great example from the books of somebody I would like to see expanded upon. I would like to see Bilal more. If you guys know any of the backstory of Bilal, okay, and again, major spoilers for Dragon Reborn here. Bilal has taken up residence in the Stone of Tyr as High Lord Salmon, but he is described as being the best manipulator of all of the Forsaken. Like, he's got the nickname the Netweaver. He creates elaborate traps. He outthinks people. He's not the strongest in the power. In fact, he's the least strong of the male Forsaken in power. But he's really intelligent, right? And he's kind of a crafty guy. And he's manipulative. I felt like he just was I never really cared about Bilal. Like, we had very few scenes. We never got a point of view scene from him. We saw maybe 2 scenes of him outside of his confrontation with Rand. I don't necessarily think he has to be somebody that does a lot of evil things, although I would like to see some of that. But also, I want to see more of him in the setup for that storyline, right? Because then when Moraine comes out of nowhere and balefires him, I'm going to care, right? And that's the type of expansion I want to see on the Forsaken. And the reason that I think it's possible to do without cutting them, and I know I said this in my last video, I don't want to cut Forsaken. I know some people have advocated for it. I don't, because we never are following more than maybe 4 or 5 of them at a time. And a lot of them are killed. So, just the idea of combining them, like, it doesn't necessarily serve a purpose. I think they can be expanded over multiple seasons. And I love the idea of Forsaken hiding in plain sight. Like, I think there's ways that they can play with that. It's not going to be helpful for us as people that have already read the books, but like, I would love to see them plant Demandred in Shara without us necessarily knowing that that's him. Like, we might know it's him as readers, but I would like to follow a character and then have him end up being a bad guy. A great example of this, in my head at least, is anybody that watched, I think it was the 4th season of The Walking Dead, where the governor had been defeated, but the governor was off on his own, and he ends up teaming up with this other group of people, and he helps lead them, and he helps get them on track, and he saves this girl, and he's set up as a good guy, all that so he can lead people to their death at the end of the season. Like, that, I want to see that in the show. Okay, I want to feel that, just little tidbits of that throughout the seasons on that. I don't know if that makes sense, but I would love that. Stubble McShave, thank you so much, man. Thank you for the donation. Appreciate you. Anytime you do that, you're going to get your comment read. Do you think the prologue could be part of a flashback from Ashamael's point of view to flesh out his character more, or to give him more screen time? I have not heard that idea before, but like, my initial reaction to that is that's a really damn good idea. That's a really good idea. If you use flashbacks tastefully and make it, I think the trope of using flashbacks where we're not aware that they're flashbacks is just becoming a little overused right now. I feel like Westworld has done that and beat that to death, and then you had The Witcher doing it too. I just don't know if that's going to go over as well anymore, because people are starting to become accustomed to that. But the idea that we know it's a flashback, right, in that prologue, and it's fleshing out Ashamael's character more. I think there's an explanation needed there about how Ashamael was not sealed away, because that was never really, like, it was kind of addressed in the books, but not really. Like, okay, if and how long after the sealing of the Bore was this? Like, was this right after? Was it long after? Was it years after? Like, we don't really know how we know Lews Therin went mad quickly, but we don't know how long had passed before Ashamael confronts him, right? So I love that idea. I need to think a little bit more on that, but I think that's a great idea, Stubble. You always have the best questions or the best ideas, so appreciate that. But okay. I see some of you saying you stopped watching The Walking Dead after the 2nd season. It was just too predictable. That's somewhat true. I don't know that I would say that's totally true, because I think there were a couple really good seasons of Walking Dead, and then it just got blah to me. But But yeah, that fourth season with the governor, after the second season with the governor, I think is a great example of what I'm talking about. So, but in any case, guys, so for whatever reason the chat has stopped. Can you guys still hear me? I don't know if it's like slowed down or something. Oh, there we go. Okay. There was not an explanation of why issue was not totally. There was an explanation of why it wasn't totally sealed in the Wayback Machine. Yeah, they've said that, but like, was he immediately free? Is my question. Like, was he? Hey, they sealed it, and then he got out, right? Like, or was it like a period of time? Because it's kind of insinuated that every 1,000 years or so, a Shamao gets out, right? So that's kind of what I wanted to know. Sorry, yeah, for whatever reason the chat like stopped moving for like 2 minutes, and now all of a sudden it's like all caught up. So thought I might have been off here. Again, if you don't mind hitting the like button, guys, that would be awesome. Okay. I think most people watch until the character they really care about gets killed off, and I would agree with that. That's why I think you do need to be careful about just killing characters off to kill characters off. You need to have enough other compelling people, but at the same time, we need to actually genuinely be afraid for our characters. Like, there need to be consequences, and that doesn't always mean that there need to be deaths. Okay, sometimes it can just be consequences that hurt their power level or hurt, whatever it would be. But I personally think that there needs to be depth to the villains, and I feel like I've talked that to death. Sean Bean is Bilal. I mean, honestly, I wouldn't be upset whatever they cast Sean Bean in. He's an outstanding actor. It would just be really funny if they introduced him to kill him in one season again. Like, I just feel like at that point he would be trolling. So we need more from all the Forsaken. Even after they're killed, they can be in flashbacks. Yeah, I think that makes sense. I really do. I do think that makes sense. I want, overall, if I had to sum up my thoughts on the Forsaken, on Fane, on Elida, on even the White Cloaks or the Shan-Chan, I think compelling villains bring out the best in the protagonists. If you don't have compelling and dangerous villains that actually have consequence, then the actions of your protagonists have less oomph behind them. And I think to a degree, that can be a criticism of the first 3 books of the Wheel of Time, because it feels like Rand does things that he shouldn't be able to do, right? And I think, like, if you watch some new readers, like, for instance, when Mike's book reviews was running through the series the first time and kind of talking about it in a public setting, one of his, I mean, he loved the series, so don't get me wrong, this is not like he hates it, but one of his criticisms was that it felt like the Forsaken were idiots. Now, I don't entirely necessarily agree with that, but I can understand where the perception comes from, because it seems like everything they try to do, they fail at, and they screw it up and die, right? Like, that's kind of what it comes across as, other than a small few of them. And I would like to see the Forsaken succeed at a lot more things, and then when the protagonists defeat them in some way, shape, or form, it has more impact. Okay, that's my thought. So let me hit on. Okay, like I'm not sure what you're talking about with Couladin. I'm probably missing some context because I've missed some of the characters. So sorry about that, Sean. Today, I'd be okay with them killing Morghese off to make Ravine more threatening. And on the surface, I agree with that. Like, I feel like Morghese's plotline doesn't add a ton, but the flip side of that is there's a lot of issues that I think are very pertinent to today that you can explore with Morghese's character that I think can be more compelling on screen. I just think we never really cared enough about Morghese to feel interconnected to her plotline. And I think that was probably the weakness there, is that had we known more of Morghese before she was like totally controlled by Ravine, then watching her loss of power and then her hitting rock bottom and then her giving up the throne, and then her, conquest and serving Perrin, and Perrin not knowing that's her. That was actually that could be interesting to me if it was done better, in my opinion. But and there's a lot of plot lines that kind of sets in motion. But on the surface, I would say, yeah, having Ravine, I think you can have Ravine be fairly evil just by what he does to Morghese and showing that, right? That to me is worse than killing her. I don't think she needs to die for that to happen. Yeah, I see some of you saying, well, most of the Forsaken are idiots. And that's a problem because they can't have done the things that they did in the Age of Legends if they were total idiots. Yes, their selfishness hurts them, but, to be idiots, I just don't want them to be bumbling idiots. I want them to be extremely competent, evil people that are selfish, and that always comes back to get them. That's what I want. I think the Forsaken were so useless because they barely worked together, and also the orders kept changing. Kill him, turn him, hurt him, kill him. I agree with that. Some of it seemed to serve the plot sometimes. So again, I think those are viable. One of these days I'll make a video talking about my criticisms of the Wheel of Time, because I think people think that I just defend it all the time. And I do. It's my favorite book series ever. But I do think there are some viable criticisms, if you will. I don't want to say that it makes it bad. People sometimes think criticism means that you don't like something. And in fact, I tend to criticize things I do like. I tend to avoid talking about things I don't. So, but I think Couladin would be played well by Toby Stephens. Interesting. I don't think I know Toby Stephens. I have to look that up. Yeah, compulsion is pretty effing evil. I see that. I see Ryan Patrick saying that, and I agree. I think compulsion is a pretty awful thing. If you can force somebody to become a slave of sorts, that's pretty awful. And it's essentially rape. And in fact, we know that he sort of does that to her. So not only does he mentally rape her in the sense that I'm going to stop using that term because it'll get the video demonetized. But, not only does he do things to her where he controls her, but he does things to her, literally. And so from that token, whether Ravine kills Morghese or not, he's extremely evil. I think that's set up. I don't think he needs to kill her for that to be clear. And I think once you see that on screen, I think once you see that on screen, I think it's a much bigger effect than reading it. So, yeah, and Grendel, I see again people talking about Grendel is one of the few examples of somebody who isn't an idiot, which is true. So, okay. They say that we will see One Eye Eel in the first season. Do you think that could be Tigraine in a scene showing the finding of Rain? I do think that's Stubble. I think that's possible. Because What Eye Eel would it make sense for us to see? I think that's possible. One criticism of Wheel of Time, it's too short. Man. Honestly, it's funny, once you finish it, how many of you, all right, quick poll. You say yes in the chat if this is true, say no in the chat if this isn't true. How many of you would have loved if they had dragged the story out 5 more books? Would you have felt like it was a money grab, or would you have been like, nope, I'm all about reading 5 more Wheel of Time books? Because I personally would have kept reading them. I didn't have to have the ending. How many of you would be upset? So, 5 more books. I even forget how I phrased this. So, you would say, no, you love the ending. So, a lot of you would have wanted more. A lot of you said, no, you think it's fine. So, this is interesting. So, I see a lot of you saying maybe you would have wanted spinoffs. Okay. It's not necessarily that I love the ending, guys. I don't mean that. I don't want to say that I felt like it needed 5 more books. I'm just saying, I think for some of us, at a certain point, I just liked reading about the world, right? I enjoy reading Crosswords of Twilight, which is most people's least favorite book. I like it. Even though it's still not my favorite, I love the world building. I would have loved to have seen more. So, I would certainly have been on board for Outrigger novels. Like I would have read the hell out of those. Spin-offs would have been great. I would love to see a story set 2 ages ahead. Like I would love to see a story set in the 5th age, right? Talking historically about some of the stuff where we get to see the cycle of where we actually know the truth as the readers, but the characters that we're reading about are hearing legends of Rand al'Thor, right? And having that like telephone, having that be morphed. I think that would be really cool. So there's a lot that I wish, like, that I think that we never got because Robert Jordan, obviously passed away, unfortunately. But gosh, that would have been so cool. Nate Kigo, I see you saying, what about a Luz Theron novella? And there, I mean, not that there is one, but there kind of is. If you've ever read, I think it's, what is it? Attack on Sheo Ghul or something like that. There is a little short story that involves Luz Theron in the Sealing of the Boar. So you can read that if that's close to it. An Ardor Hawkwing series would have been fun. But yeah, I agree. So guys, actually, let me read this to you because I was doing this last night on Discord, which, by the way, if you're not in my Discord server, join it. We have a lot of fun. Like, we were up for a couple hours last night talking in the voice chat. There's always conversations going. All you have to do, if you're not familiar with Discord, it's real simple. Like, most of us weren't familiar with it before we started using it, but we get to talk about Wheel of Time all the time, so it's fun. All you have to do is click the link in the description of the video, and it'll kind of prompt you to download it and set it up. But yeah, getting in Discord is a lot of fun. But one of the things that I read to people last night, and I'll give you guys, since you're the lucky ones here on the live stream, so I'll give this to you now. Some upcoming videos that I've got coming out, and I know that some of you have some of you have mentioned some of this. So my next video is going to be a Malkir cultural examination. So we're going to go through the history of Malkir. I've got some cool maps made for it, which I'm excited about. So we'll talk about that history. I've got 3 more things that I would change, which I think are going to be a little bit more controversial than the first video I released on it. I've got a couple more video remakes of some of my earlier videos that I'm going to put out. But one that you guys mentioned in here, and I will talk about this one because I've got maps made for this as well, is Ardor Hawkwing's A History of Ardor Hawkwing. So I know a lot of people don't necessarily have the history of the Wheel of Time down, like what's gone on. Like when people talk about the Free Years or the time of the 10 Nations or things like people just don't know what that means. So I'm going to make a couple historical videos that kind of explain some of the backstory that got us where we are. Especially, and one of the most influential, that's the word I'm looking for. One of the most influential characters in the history of the Wheel of Time is Ardor Hawkwing. So if we can get through and I can show you guys like the history of how Ardor Hawkwing came to power, how he conquered, what his empire looked like, and then how it fell apart. That actually sets up the nations that we see in the story now. So I think there's a lot of the modern cities are founded around that time. So I think I'm excited about that. So those are a couple of things that I've got coming up. But again, join the Discord if you haven't done that. Okay. There might have been more books if RJ had lived longer. I think so. I don't think he would have wrapped it up in the time thing, in the time frame that he said he would. Sea Folk, still not a lot of that content. I've got some stuff coming up on the Sea Folk too. I feel like I always feel interesting about the Sea Folk because I never really felt, to me, they came across as extremely bratty and annoying rather than like competent. I don't know why I felt that way. The Sea Folk are probably my least favorite culture from the Wheel of Time. And I felt like it was a squandered opportunity, but that's just because I feel that way. It doesn't mean you have to feel that way. I felt like the way that they, like with the bargain, like I know they wanted to make the bargain with the Aes Sedai seem impactful on the Aes Sedai, like something that they hated. But like in no stretch of the imagination do I feel like the Aes Sedai would have allowed themselves to be bullied because they never agreed to be commanded as a part of teaching, right? Like that's not how Aes Sedai teach. So it's I just felt like that interaction ruined the Sea Folk for me because it made them seem very I just didn't like them. Like there was nothing to me compelling about the Sea Folk at that point. Now I think they had more promise. I just wish they hadn't come across as so venomous, maybe. Like they just never seemed to have compassion. They never seemed to be like, I don't know. That was just my impressions of it. I could be wrong. I'm sure some of you have a different opinion. I just never really connected with them. I don't. Now, that being said, I don't want to cut the Sea Folk. I think they potentially could be cut. But it's another culture that I think adds depth to the world. And so whether they have a less featured role or not, like they don't need to have an expanded role to have them be a part of the story. Yeah, and they can't do the Sea Folk justice without an M rating yet because they're going to have to show a bunch of topless Sea Folk. But so yeah, I just got bored with the Sea Folk. See, I'm seeing a lot of you felt that way, and again, I just feel like there were no name a Sea Folk character that you connected with, and I think that's the difference. There were no super likable Sea Folk characters that we got points of view from. Like I think there were Aiel that we could connect with. I think there were Kin that we could somewhat connect with, even though not as much. There were certainly Aes Sedai that we connected with. There were even Shan-Chan that we connected with. I think for a lot of people like Aguinan. I didn't. I like Aguinan. Some people, even though she's a slaver and she's evil, some people connected with Tuon. If you can put aside the awful, imperial slaving that she does, right? Like, but I just felt like there was nothing likable about the Sea Folk. And Talon maybe, but she has almost no screen time and no points of view. So like, yeah, you know what I mean? Like I just never connected with them. Tell me if I'm wrong. Did any of you connect with a Sea Folk person? Like, did any of you connect with the Sea Folk? Your favorite Shan-Chan was a Nath. Of course it was. I think if Shantae could be one person, it would be Semirog in real life. The most compelling part of the Sea Folk was the escape from Ebudar. I agree. That was interesting. And I would like to see more of that. But yeah. Hey guys, I'm going to cut this off right now. Any more discussion about race of the Sea Folk, and whether this is where it's going or not, it's going to end right now. So let's just kill that conversation. Otherwise, I'm going to boot you from the room. We're just not going to go there in the live stream. So, but yeah, back on the Sea Folk. Is there anybody that connected with a character from the Sea Folk? Because I generally think that is the reason that they're not that well liked. So that's just my thought. Well, whether it's a negative conversation about race or not, it's going to head that way. So we're done. Okay. Period. Sorry, guys. We're just not going to do that here. I don't need that in the comments. I don't want that in the comments, and it's not an issue that needs debated in this live stream. So yeah, let's shift subjects here. Any case, so we talked about least favorite, cutting stuff, and I think we got on this topic talking about Morghese. We tend to do this on these live streams. But my other thoughts were this. So I've said earlier, this all started, the first part of this conversation started with, who are you most excited for them to announce for the show? And I said Ishamael. And why Ishamael? Because I still have the inkling that like they're going to cast somebody big for that role. Another big name. Like they need another headliner. We've got big name actors in this show, right? Rosamund Pike is the headliner so far, right? Like she's the most famous. She's an Oscar nominated actress, all of that. What we need another one. And I think the best candidate for that would be a Forsaken. And somebody that, again, if it's a Shamael, spoilers here, but he's not going to be around, right? Like, hold on a minute here. Shantane, you have been added as a moderator. And because I think, and you know what, Celtic, you're the next person in front of me right here. You've been added as a moderator. Feel free to get rid of anything that you see. I don't think my other moderators are normally here. But if you guys see anything that needs to go, you have the power. Just because I'm not paying as much attention as I should be. But yeah, so any case, what other than Ishamael, like who are some of the other characters that you guys are excited for? So we've explored Elaine. I haven't heard anybody really talk about Min very much. Is there anybody that is there anybody that's excited for a casting of Min? Like, how many of you like Min? Like, is there anybody that's like, I can't wait for her to make it into the show? Because I haven't seen that as much. Just a thought. Like, who else are we excited to see? And while you guys are answering that question again, feel free to, or please like the video. I mentioned it earlier. Check out some of the affiliate links in the description below. That's the best way to support the channel, especially the NordVPN. That's my new sponsor. I'm really excited to have them. If you guys don't have a VPN, if you would consider using them like for your VPN, or if you have a VPN and it's not Nord, consider switching because that supports the channel. You don't pay more for it. In fact, you get a deal on it. And VPNs are badass, so they're awesome. So definitely check out those links. And let me see what you guys have been saying since I started talking. Avienda, huh? So the question, if they cast Avienda this early, that implies a lot about changing plots, like that we're gonna get her so soon, right? Do you like? Would any of you be upset if they cast Avienda this early? I know I see some of you saying you've already got Nord, and that's awesome. You don't have to resubscribe if you've already had it because it's the best. I see people saying the Trakan family, which Trakan makes more sense, right? Because all of the Trakans, for that matter, like, again, I just come back to: are we going to see? Are they just going to make? I feel like if they put them in the show, then we have to see them later in the first season too. Like, they can't be a one-off, like they are in the books, in the first book. Like, they can't be just there for a couple scenes and then peace out. So, like, how would that work? And if they cast Avienda now, are we following the Aiel plot lines? Like, is it all coming together? Because that would be a really cool way to approach things, is to bring in the Aiel early and have them be sent. But the question is what narrative does that serve a function in the narrative to do that, right? Like, so I don't know. I don't know if that would function. Now, Ipa saying concept art, and you know what, Ipa, you're another good one because you're a moderator for my Discord. You get to be a moderator too. But yeah, getting concept art from the Blight, my gosh, I'm going to eat up all of the concept art that we can, honestly. Like, I can't wait for all of it. I want to see Murdral. I want to see Trellix. I want to see, like, yeah, it. I can't tell you how excited I am if you can't see it on my face. I'm so excited for this show to finally come out because, like, I've been waiting years for this, which I know many of you have too. So that would be exciting. Now, okay, I see a comment there that I want to explore because I talked about this a little in my Shara video, my remake of my last Shara video. I see Preston McGinty saying worms, right? So like Jamara, worms. In my head, when I read it the first time, because I had previously read Dune, I was thinking the worms from Dune. Okay. How many of you have, I'm curious, how many of you picture the worms that they talk about as being basically worms from Dune? Like, how many of you read it that way? I'm curious. And I see while people are answering that, the graboids from Tremors. Yeah, so that's also the way I pictured it. Graboids from Tremors, worms from Dune. Like, that's how I pictured it. So for those of you that didn't, how did you picture them? Because the reality, guys, is actually, if you look at the descriptions, especially from River of Souls, Jumara are basically described as dragons. Okay, like they're snakes with legs. They're the Asian form of a dragon. Okay, which I think throws people off. Like, that's not what you were thinking. Like, a full-grown Jumara has legs and kind of looks like a dragon. So I think that's interesting. Because I legitimately thought Dune. That's what I thought. That's how I read it, at least. And people saying graboids, like, yep, same thing. Those are much smaller versions of the same thing. But yeah, they are. So people saying Komodo dragons, like Malkier talks, that's actually kind of how they are described. So that's interesting. Or I see the Beetlejuice. That's a good one. But yeah, stuff like that where there's a significant, like the way that we read it, like that's the beauty of the written word, is that I can read it and generate in my own headcanon, and you can read it and generate your own headcanon for something. And then, of course, the production design generates a headcanon. And that the danger in adapting something is once we see it on screen and we become comfortable with that look, like that's how it's always going to look to us. Like, at least it's hard for it not to look that way in our heads when we reread. So that's why I really want to see the production design, to like see how they nail, like how they do Murdral, how they do Trollocs, all of that. Early character who could be a big actress, Elida. 100% agree. I think Elida could be a big name actress because she's in the story for a long time. But the other side of that is because she's in the story a long time, it's harder for them to hire a big name actress. So that could be an idea. The idea of Jumara as corrupted versions of an Asian dragon is pretty cool. I agree. I think that would look really, really cool. Do you do empty sockets for Murdral or just the flat face above the nose? I think you do the flat face. I just know this. I want Murdral to be creepy AF. That's what I want. I want them to be creepy. I want Trollocs to be horrifying. And I really, 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 really hope they use practical effects for this. Like, I really hope they do. I want the CGI to be a bare minimum when it comes to Shadow Spawn. Because if you look back, so I'll give you a great example of this. I watched Jurassic Park popped up on Netflix, and I haven't seen Jurassic Park in so long. I watched Jurassic Park the other night, and those special effects in Jurassic Park hold up better than the majority of modern special effects done with CGI. And if you know much about how Steven Spielberg and the production team designed the dinosaurs, they very much limited the CGI when they made Jurassic Park. They did most of that with customized models, and then they would touch it up with CGI. That's what I want them to do. I want these to all be animatronic, or build full-size models or real costumes. Like, you're right. Like, I see Ipa saying that the original Jurassic Park looks better than the new Jurassic World movies, and that's 100% true because they actually took the time to build the things in a conventional way. That's what I want with Wheel of Time. So, see some of you saying about that. Should they juice the Murdral's mouth and nose features, or just leave them normal with no eyes? So, yeah, like, I think they need to make them enough that they can come across as human, like, because there are times where Murdral passes humans, but they just look off because their hoods are covered. but I want their mouths to be evil looking, like teeth that are evil. Like there just needs to be something off, like very off about them. And Trollocs I think Trollocs do kind of look silly with like beaks and stuff like that, but they can look like, I guess what I'm trying to say is like you really have to make them grotesque to make Trollocs work, in my opinion. Because, you know, obviously what Robert Jordan was doing is he was putting his own take on orcs. Like that's basically what Trollocs are, is like a modern take on orcs, which is part of that trope. But yeah, I agree to a degree that those might not look real, and I don't want them to look silly. That could be said. So they could file the Fade's teeth. Like again, yeah, they could be filed, although that might almost be too stereotypical. Myrddraal could look similar to the mouth of Sauron. I always thought that. That's actually kind of how I pictured them. But the mouth of Sauron has a little bit too big of a mouth, I think. I think they should go more brute, savage with Trollocs than scary. And I think there's a part of that, but scary, I guess, when I say scary, I don't mean like I look at them and get scared, but as much as like they would be an intimidating presence is, I guess, a better way of putting it. Like, would I be scared of a Trolloc if I saw it in person? That's kind of what I'm aiming for. And something that has a little bird's beak, I mean, that doesn't look horrifying, unless that bird's beak has the ability to rip holes in people, you know, and eat people raw and that kind of thing. Like, I want them to be imposing is probably a better way of putting it. There could be episodes of the show that are basically short horror films. Well, guys, I actually think, and I agree with Daniel Green, we actually talked about this, I think, in our live stream together. I think the first couple episodes of The Wheel of Time read like a horror story. I mean, if you really think about the chase there with the Shadow Spawn coming after them and what they did in the Two Rivers and almost killing Tam, and Rand hiding in the woods, and, you know, it's almost a horror story to a degree. So yeah, I would like to see it a little bit more horrifying. Pale Man from Pan's Labyrinth. Yeah, I agree with that one, Corey. I think that's another very good visual or mental visual image of of Trollocs, or I'm sorry, of Myrddraal. I'd be cooking with Narg spinoff show. You need to hit up Malkir Talks for that. Maybe he'll dress up as a Trolloc and cook for you. If you haven't checked out Malkir Talks, he's in the chat here. He has a YouTube channel where he does cooking in the Wheel of Time. So if you want to learn how to cook honey cakes, that's the place to go. So as long as Myrddraal don't look as silly as Voldemort, I agree with that. Voldemort was never really scary. If they really capture how massive Trollocs are, this is Preston McGinty, I think even the beaks and feathers would still look intimidating. And you're right. Here's my one problem with making Trollocs so massive. Okay. To me, it was never really believable that, like, okay, let me go back to the giants in Game of Thrones. Like, how many people did one giant take out? Lots, right? Trollocs are 9 feet tall, 8 to 9 feet tall, really strong, really fast, can run as fast as a horse. You're trying to tell me that individual human soldiers should be able to kill Trollocs? Like, or the cave troll in Lord of the Rings. Like, they're almost the size of a cave troll. I'm certain that some of them could kill them, but like you see them regularly cutting through Trollocs like they're just like fodder, right? And I never understood that because Trollocs are so big, okay, that like you would think that they would be like the average person or just a normal fighter would be totally outnumbered by one Trolloc. Like it would normally, to me, would take 2 or 3 people to bring down a Trolloc in my head. So I don't know. I always struggled with that of like Trollocs go from being incredibly intimidating to just becoming like whatever. They're just there to get killed, right? Trollocs are vulnerable to humans because they don't use effective tactics, which I agree, but there are plenty of individual times where people individually fight Trollocs and kill them very easily. That's the part that I just don't understand. Like a massive battle, I understand a little better, but I don't know. Yeah, you said they're a little over 7 feet. Yeah, Trollocs are described as being 7 to 8 feet tall. So clumsy and dumb, but they the idea of having them be literal giants is the one thing that I'm just kind of like, I'm on it. Yeah, that I just think you have to. There comes a point where Trollocs, like the power creep in the universe. So here's where it goes. Like, what I do appreciate is things that were early on scary. Like if you go back to the first book and you take Rand's power level from, let's say, Lord of Chaos, right? Like none of the things that they face in Eye of the World would even scare Rand in the slightest bit. Like Rand could single-handedly destroy all of the Trollocs in Myrddraal that attacked the two rivers. He could take on a few of the Forsaken at that point. Like Drakkar, like can kill them out of the sky. Like Rand's power creep, and I do appreciate the fact that channeling changes the way that battle happens in the books over time. But like Rand's power creep is crazy. Like I said, like there's almost nothing that would be a threat to him from the first couple books. But I just don't want Trollocs to be relegated to like cannon fodder, basically. That's, I guess, what I'm trying to say. The most intimidating creatures from the books were the Shanshan's version of Ogier. I agree with that. Or I think they can do Darkhound's pretty scary too. They need to give them disadvantages if they're big, small eyes, bad sentences, poor use of weapons. Agreed. They have to do something, but I don't want them to be completely useless. Trollocs will always be a threat to non-channelers, and that's what I'm hoping is true. I want Trollocs to be a real threat to non-channelers, and channelers can obviously, I want them to see the difference between channelers and non-channelers, because the reality of it is this. Wheel of Time magic users are supremely powerful comparatively to a lot of other fantasy systems. Like, it's hard to envision many characters more powerful than Rand. It just is. You know, at the end of the story, Rand is essentially godlike. And so, yeah, channelers in general should be a degree of level above Trollocs, but I want them to be dangerous to the non-channelers. That's probably the way I'd put it. That's a good way of saying it. Yeah, like even the mediocre magic users are like levels of power above, right? So channelers are very OP. But let me hit on this. First of all, if you can, again, like the video if you're watching, if you're just joining us. We'll probably be wrapping up here in a few minutes. Guys, I will give one other big shout out. I'll keep saying it. The best way to support the channel, and by the way, this is other big news. Oops, hit my mic. The website should be dropping soon. I was giving some people a preview of most of what is done. It's obviously going to come out in a beta version. So for those of you who've been waiting for thegreatblight.com, excuse me. For those of you that have been waiting for it, it will be going live. I was hoping by the end of today. I'm not entirely certain that's going to be done by the end of the day. I'm going to try. But as much as I get time this week, it should be live by next weekend at the latest. And it will be a beta version. So to be very clear on this, the website is not going to be in its complete form. The wiki will be mostly incomplete. There are going to be some functionality that maybe won't be there at the beginning that will later on. But what is going to be there is access to all the content creators, their work, You'll have posted work, so this will be like your go-to place to see all of the content that's coming out. So all you got to do is go to the main page of the website, and you'll be able to see what stuff is being released by who, and watch that or consume that content. You'll be able to support content creators that you guys like financially. All of the maps that I use, including that one behind me, are available for free download to everybody. I am encouraging all content creators to use those. One of the main reasons that I make the maps is that there just aren't always great maps to use for videos that are high quality. And so I've been putting them together, and that's what they're there for. And you guys, all of the maps I've made will be accessible there. You can download them. You can look at them. The wiki is going to be more of a work in progress. Right now, there's about, I counted it up, there's like 43 articles on the wiki right now. There will be close to 3,000-4,000 by the time it's done. And we've got a lot of people working on that. So I don't make it sound like we're way far behind on it. We're not. But we're getting the bare bones of the functionality of it worked out before we start adding that information. So all of that is going to be there. If you guys want to support, you want to support the channel, you want to support the website, the best ways that you can do that are really buying merch in the store, supporting on Patreon is the absolute best way to do it. If you want to become a patron. In fact, the video I'm making about Malkir is actually sponsored by one of my patrons. So you can figure out how to, sponsor your own video. You get to choose the topic and all that. And there's other tiers and things on the Patreon. Obviously, NordVPN, Audible, those are other ways that you can support the channel and get something for it, which I always appreciate. So IPA, I think, just linked the website if you want to shop for some merch. But guys, I appreciate all of you. A lot of you in here already support the channel and support what I do. And it's very, very appreciated. And hopefully we're going to keep putting out content. That my goal with all of it is just to be able to support the community and set us up in a place where here in the near future, when the show comes out, that there are places for new readers to go to be enriched and to learn about the lore. And so that's kind of the mindset behind a lot of what I'm doing. And so if you guys are interested in helping with that, check out all of those various different places. You can support there. Again, NordVPN, Audible, Patreon, Shop Wheel Time, all of it. But yeah, guys, I will wrap up, I think, here. Thank you for joining on the live stream. I always love getting to chat with you guys. I'd love to do more of these as I get the chance to. Got some cool video topics coming out that I kind of hit on earlier in the video. So I appreciate all of you. Thank you, Alistair, for the support. Do I think they'll do Loose Theron in the prologue? I do. I hope they do, at least. I would love to see that. So I'm a big fan, actually. I know a lot of people aren't. I think the prologue sets the tone, and I would like to see the prologue done as a cold open. That's what I want to see. So give us a prediction when the show will air next year. I'm going to go with fall of next year. That's what I think. Summer or fall. So any case, that's my thoughts. But hey, guys, appreciate you all. Thanks for joining. Going to hop off for now and look for some new videos. Peace out.